So we see that Samuel went on and hearkened unto the people's voice. And as we know, consequently to that, Saul was appointed king. So in knowing that was not God's way, that was not God's desire, is for the people to have a king, we see how sometimes man will appoint man to rule over himself instead of hearkening to the direction and to the leading of the Lord. So that kind of sets the preface for our discussion tonight. So let's talk about a little bit about, since we see that was not a godlike ascension to leadership, let's talk about some of the pitfalls and some of the correct ways for ascension to leadership. I'm going to turn it over to you, Bishop Brannon. Good evening. How are you, sir? Help us out a little bit.
Good evening, Pastor Whitmore, and good evening to all the other esteemed guests on the broadcast. You're discussing a very sensitive subject. We just were blessed to conclude this past weekend our ordination. We do an ordination, an elevation, and a consecration, depending on which level the individual is going to. And that process is not an easy one. It's purposely made to be arduous because one of them where you say only the strong survive. There's no such thing as a born leader. There are people that are born with leadership characters and leadership capabilities, but there's no such thing as a born leader. Leadership is learned and it is developed. And then more so in the ministry. When the Apostle Paul is talking to young Timothy and Titus, he is very specific in some of the information that he gives them, but he also says, let no man despise you because of your youth. And I was called into ministry. I was 9 years old when I was called into ministry. I remember I was made the preacher for the youth at 11 years old. And I wish that my testimony, that I stayed faithful to the call all my life, but that's not my testimony. But the greater good in the testimony is I came back. And I came back very humbled. When people wanted to push me up in leadership, I said, I just want to clean the bathroom. I want to sweep the floors. I want to empty the trash. And I wanted to be there on purpose. It's kind of a segue where the prodigal son comes back and he says, I'm no longer worthy to be called your son, but make me one of your hired servants. And I realized that I needed to start at the bottom because apparently I got too big for my britches, and that's what caused me to walk away from where my first love was. But when we do our ordinations and elevations, Pastor Whitmore, they have to wait from one convocation all the way to the next. And so two of the bishops just said to me last night before leaving, Bishop, my people were never done like this, and they want to be done this way. Well, that's going to be a little bit different because these are people that are already elevated. These are people that are already licensed. These are people that are already ordained versus, and they're under the seals of these people here, these seals here. So it's a lot different than you have someone that's growing up in ministry. We had one that was set forth as a lay minister. So that lay minister tenure is 1 year. And 1 year, if they do not measure up, they're not ordained if they don't measure up. And then they will go through a ministry review board at the end of that year, which is literally right before the day of the ordination ceremony. So if he or she doesn't measure up, I have no problem in saying next year, because it's very important that it's done right, it's done timely. The Apostle Paul says, let no man lay hands on you suddenly. And that is within ordaining people. Okay? So just because somebody says, hey, you're a preacher, doesn't mean we should order a person step in that direction if they're not ready for it. I know it's a very long answer, but